How a narcissist reacts when they realize you've lost interest. And I want to begin with the specific quality of the lost interest that this title is pointing at. Because not all lost interest produces the same reaction, and the reaction we are discussing is produced by a very specific kind. The lost interest that produces an ordinary narcissistic response, the hoovering, the love-bombing reactivation, the supply-seeking re-engagement, is the lost interest that is organized around the narcissist, the withdrawal that is still, in its deepest structure, about the narcissist, the distancing that carries the narcissist's significance and the very quality of the distance being maintained. That kind of lost interest the narcissist system reads accurately and responds to with the standard supply restoration toolkit. It is familiar territory. The system has navigated it before and has calibrated tools for it. The lost interest that produces the specific reaction this episode is about is different in quality. It is the lost interest that is not organized around the narcissist at all. Not withdrawal from the narcissist. Not distance from the narcissist. Simply the genuine reorientation of your attention and your energy and your emotional investment toward your own life in ways that have nothing to do with the narcissist, not in reaction to them, not in opposition to them, not in the careful management of your engagement with them, simply elsewhere, genuinely, completely, unperformatively elsewhere. And that quality of lost interest, the interest that was not dramatically withdrawn but simply stopped arriving because where it goes now is genuinely somewhere that has nothing to do with the narcissist, is the specific thing this episode is examining. Because the narcissist's reaction to it is one of the most revealing and most psychologically specific behavioral sequences available in the entire arc of this dynamic. Let's start with what the narcissist system detects when the genuine lost interest arrives. Because the detection precedes the reaction, and understanding the detection is what makes the reaction comprehensible. The narcissist's monitoring of the people in their orbit is continuous and specific, as we have established in previous conversations. It reads for emotional frequency, for the specific signals that indicate the monitored person's psychological landscape still has the narcissist as a significant feature, and genuine lost interest produces something in the monitoring that is different from every other state the monitoring has previously detected in you. It produces not a different signal, but the absence of the signal. The specific, sourceless, uncharged quality of someone whose attention has genuinely moved on, not strategically, not defensively, not in the managed way that performed indifference produces, but genuinely. The way attention moves when the thing it was oriented toward has simply ceased to be where the attention wants to go. The absence of the signal is itself a signal, and it is the most alarming signal the monitoring system can receive for reasons we have discussed in other contexts. But the specific reaction it produces in this context, when the lost interest is genuine and the monitoring has detected its genuineness, has specific features that distinguish it from the reactions the narcissist produces to other supply challenges. The first feature is the speed of the reaction. The genuine lost interest produces a faster reaction than almost any other supply challenge the narcissist system encounters, because the absence of the signal is processed by the monitoring as a specific category of emergency that the ordinary supply fluctuations do not trigger. Ordinary supply fluctuations, the temporary withdrawal, the angry distance, the hurt disengagement, produce the calibrated sequence response we have discussed. The genuine lost interest produces something more urgent, something that bypasses the calibration and the sequencing and arrives more quickly and with less of the usual strategic organization than the narcissist's ordinary supply-seeking responses carry. The urgency reveals something important. It reveals that the monitoring system has detected something it does not have an adequate, prepared response to. The calibrated, sequenced responses were prepared for the supply challenges the system has encountered before, all of which, however varied in their surface expression, shared the fundamental quality of being organized around the narcissist. The person who is hurt is organized around the narcissist. The person who is angry is organized around the narcissist. The person who is withdrawing strategically is organized around the narcissist. All of those states give the system something to work with, an emotional charge that can be engaged, a position in relation to the narcissist that the tools can address. The genuine lost interest gives the system nothing to work with in the way the prepared responses require. Because there is no position in relation to the narcissist to address, the attention is simply gone. And gone attention cannot be re-engaged by tools designed to redirect or transform attention that is present but misdirected. The tools require presence. The genuine lost interest provides absence. And the urgency of the reaction is the system's recognition, however incomplete and however unacknowledged at the conscious level, that it is facing something its prepared responses do not adequately address. The second feature of the reaction is its specific content, and this is the part that most people who have experienced the genuine lost interest and watched the narcissist's reaction to it find most surprising and most difficult to interpret without the framework that makes it legible. The reaction does not look like the ordinary supply-seeking reaction. It does not look like the love-bombing reactivation, or the hoovering sequence, or the calibrated vulnerability performance, or any of the tools the system usually deploys when supply is being disrupted. It looks more like the reaction of someone who has been genuinely startled, who has encountered something unexpected in a landscape they believed they had mapped completely, who is responding not from the confidence of the prepared response, but from the specific disorientation of someone whose operational certainty has been disrupted in a way they did not anticipate and are not certain how to address. The reaction carries a quality of genuine surprise that the prepared responses do not carry, because the prepared responses are deployed from the confidence of a system that knows what it is dealing with. The reaction to genuine lost interest is produced by a system that does not know what it is dealing with, has never quite dealt with this before, is encountering, in the genuine quality of your no longer being interested, something that the entire history of its supply-seeking experience has not adequately prepared it for. And what this genuine surprise produces in the narcissist's behavior, the specific things the narcissist does when the disorientation of genuine lost interest has been detected and the prepared responses are unavailable and the system is navigating without the map it has always relied on, is the most revealing behavioral sequence the narcissist produces across the entire arc of the dynamic. More revealing than the love bombing, which is the construction at its most polished and its most deliberately managed. More revealing than the devaluation, which is the construction's management of a specific threat with the tools the threat management system has prepared for it. The reaction to genuine lost interest is the construction responding to something it was not prepared to respond to. And the unprepared response reveals the construction's actual architecture in ways that the prepared responses were specifically designed to conceal. What the unprepared response actually looks like in specific behavioral terms, and what each behavioral expression reveals about the construction's architecture that the prepared responses were concealing, and what all of it means for the person whose genuine lost interest produced it. That is exactly where we are going next. What the unprepared response actually looks like in specific behavioral terms is worth examining carefully, because it presents itself in forms that are easy to misread without the framework to understand what is generating them. The first behavioral expression is the sudden, disproportionate increase in visibility, not the strategic visibility increase that the ordinary supply seeking produces, which is organized and calibrated and aimed at specific audiences with specific content designed to reach the monitoring's target. This visibility increase has a different quality. It is less organized, less specifically targeted, more broadly deployed across every available channel with a frequency and a volume that exceeds what strategic supply seeking would require. It has the quality of someone who is generating noise in the hope that the noise reaches the person who has stopped listening, without the usual strategic calculation about what specific noise would be most effective at reaching that specific person. The broadcasting has replaced the targeting. And broadcasting rather than targeting is the behavior of a system that has lost the operational information it needs to target effectively. The map is gone. The targeting requires the map. Without the map, broadcasting is what remains. The second behavioral expression is the one that most people find most surprising because it is the most direct departure from the narcissist's ordinary relational functioning. It is the sudden, often clumsy, specifically personal reaching, contact that arrives without the usual framing, without the pretext that the ordinary hoovering deploys to make the reaching plausible as something other than what it is. The message that simply arrives without a reason. The reference to something specifically personal, a memory, a detail, something that was only yours, deployed without the usual strategic management of how the personal reference is framed. This clumsiness is information. The ordinary hoovering is not clumsy. It is precisely calibrated to seem like something other than hoovering. The clumsy reaching is what hoovering looks like when the calibration is unavailable because the operational information that calibration requires is gone. The person who was generating the calibration, you, in your organized, signal-providing engagement with the dynamic, is no longer generating the information the calibration needs. And the reaching that results is the system attempting to restore the information by restoring the contact that the information was generated through, without the strategic management that the information would have allowed. The third behavioral expression is the most psychologically revealing, and the one that most directly shows what the genuine lost interest has disrupted at the level that matters most. It is the specific deterioration in the quality of the supply-seeking behavior across all contexts, not just in the context of reaching toward you, but in the general functioning of the supply-seeking mechanism in the current environment. Because the genuine lost interest has not just removed a supply source, it has removed the specific regulatory resource that the supply source was providing, the ongoing confirmation that the narcissist's significance is real and specific and personally directed. And the removal of that specific regulatory resource has a destabilizing effect on the construction's general functioning that extends beyond the relationship with you. The construction is less stable in other contexts. The supply from other sources feels less adequate. The management of the ambient anxiety requires more effort. The general quality of the supply-seeking behavior carries a slightly reduced confidence, a slightly diminished authority in the presentation, a slightly increased urgency in the generation of supply from every available source, that the people in those other contexts may notice without being able to identify what has changed. This general destabilization is important to understand because it is the most complete evidence available of what your genuine interest was actually providing that the lost interest has now removed. Not the supply of admiration, not the confirmation of the presented self, the specific, irreplaceable regulatory resource of your specifically personal, accurately directed, genuine interest in the actual person rather than in the performance. That resource, its presence stabilizing the construction in ways the construction could not fully account for while it was present, its absence destabilizing in ways that become visible only in its removal, was the thing the monitoring detected as gone. And the reaction to its absence is the most honest behavioral evidence available of what it was actually doing for the construction when it was present. Now here is what all of this means for the person whose genuine lost interest produced this reaction. The reaction, the unstrategic broadcasting, the clumsy personal reaching, the general destabilization, is not a reason to restore the interest. It is not evidence that the relationship is now something different from what it was. It is not the change that would make re-engagement produce something different from what engagement has always produced. It is evidence of impact. The same evidence we have discussed in other contexts, real, significant, revealing of what was actually there in the dynamic, and insufficient, as impact always is, as grounds for anything that requires the change the impact does not indicate. What the reaction actually is, received clearly and without the distortion of hope or the performance of indifference, is the most complete available confirmation that what you provided was genuinely specific to you. That the interest you are no longer providing was not generic, was not the kind of thing the next supply source will provide equivalently, was yours, was produced by who you are and how you perceive and what you bring to the people you genuinely invest your attention in. The narcissist's reaction to its absence is the narcissist system's most honest acknowledgement that what was there was specific and valuable in a way that the supply-seeking mechanism cannot simply replace and move on from. Not because it loved you in the full sense, because it needed what you specifically provided in a way that is not generically available. And you, whose genuine interest has moved on to your own life and your own becoming, do not need to receive this acknowledgement as anything other than what it is. Information, confirmation, the behavioral evidence of something you already knew, that what you brought to the dynamic was real and specific and worth more than the dynamic was returning. You do not need to restore the interest to validate its value. Its value was never dependent on the narcissist's acknowledgement of it. The reaction is simply the acknowledgement arriving, in the only form the narcissist's psychology is capable of producing it, not as words, not as genuine accountability, but as the specific, revealing, unprepared behavioral sequence of a system that has lost something it cannot easily replace, and is responding to the loss with everything it has available, which, in the absence of the map your interest was generating, turns out to be considerably less than it used to be. And considerably less than it used to be is the most complete description available of what the narcissist becomes when you genuinely stop being interested. Not devastated in the dramatic sense, diminished in the specific sense, operating with less than the full complement of operational resources the dynamic was providing, navigating without the map, reaching without the calibration, broadcasting without the targeting, and you no longer providing any of it, simply elsewhere, in your own life, genuinely. That elsewhere is not a loss. It is where you were always supposed to be,